We turn now back to this breaking news tonight. Harvey Weinstein verdict, the jury finding him guilty today on both rape and sexual assault charges, many calling it a watershed moment in the Me Too movement. And we want to bring in Tarana Burke, an activist who started the original Me Too movement. That was more than a decade ago. Thank you for being here tonight. We wanted to get your views on what this means today.
Well, thank you for having me. I do think this is a historic day. I think it's a really important day. And so many people have so many feelings, including myself, about what we saw happen in the courtroom earlier this morning.
When you look at this, how important was it to note that Mr. Weinstein's witnesses and accusers didn't feel they could go even to prosecutors, DAs, the government? Many first went, as discussed, to online as a place to push back, and to journalists, Megan Twohey and Jodi Kantor, among others.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that means that we should look at what our judicial system offers, right? We have really narrow laws around sexual violence and not a lot of space for people to find accountability within the justice system. So we had to create our own forms of accountability, whether it's on social media or through these reported, these exposés that came out.
When you look at the coverage today, where were you when you heard that Weinstein was convicted?
I was at home. I was at home this morning and got a text message saying that the verdict is coming.
And then what did you do then?
I turned on MSNBC.
and then you start hearing this as this is one of those days, particularly for people who are closer to it, who care about it. Then you hear that he was sitting there and he, according to the accounts, he said, "I'm innocent." He didn't move. He seemed in shock. Do you think some people were also in shock that this could even happen?
Oh, I think that so many of us were in shock. I'm sure he was in shock because he's never had to be accountable for his behavior. He's never had to answer for the ways in which he's misused his power and privilege for the last 20 or 30 years. So I'm sure it's shocking when you have to be faced with the reality of your crimes. Many of us were shocked because on the other side of things, most survivors never get to see inside of a courtroom, right? For every 1,000 sexual assault cases, 995 of those perpetrators walk away. So most survivors will never see what happened here today. We'll never have that experience. So many of us are used to being, seeing people walk away from crimes like this.
When we report on and look at the facts of the systemic disparities and injustice, even when you get a case that normally you wouldn't get, there's still all of these extra things and benefits afforded to the powerful and often to white defendants.
Absolutely.
What did it mean to you that in New York, this DA, who others noted earlier in our broadcast, may have been slow to this to begin with, that's important on the record, but that today the DA and the judge said, unlike, say, some of the Mueller defendants we've seen, that Mr. Weinstein waits in jail to be sentenced, that he is, for the first time tonight, Harvey Weinstein spends a night in jail?
I think it sends an important message that regardless of your money or your wealth or your race, that you have to answer and be accountable for the crimes that you commit. So I think it was important that he was remanded. I think symbolically for many survivors, and particularly the survivors of his survivors, seeing him be carted out in handcuffs and knowing that he'll spend the night and several more nights in jail and hopefully several years after that in jail is very important for us. So we know that they are really focused on what's important here and that we have some of the things that we need to sleep well tonight. I'm hoping those survivors sleep well tonight knowing that.
Final question. In this case, we've heard from people that around Mr. Weinstein and around the other people who went through this, it was a so-called open secret. It was known. It was discussed. In your work, how common is that in a given community or situation, many people do have some inkling of alleged misconduct, and in the past, nothing's done? Will that change?
I hope it changes. So many of us are only protected by the whisper system, right? People telling you stay out of that office or don't go with that person or don't be alone with this person. We need that to change. We have to have these open secrets become really open information so that people can be accountable, but also so that people can be safe. So I'm hoping that this is the start of also seeing some things like that change.
Tarana Burke, we so wanted to hear from you today. I appreciate you coming on The Beat.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.